If you would you walk us through a typical day for you?
Yeah.
Great.
Well, I generally come in at least 15 minutes late. I use the side door. That way Lumberg can't see me. And after that, I just sort of space out for about an hour. Till I'm thirsty.
Space out?
Yeah, I just stare at my desk. But it looks like I'm working. I do that for probably another hour after lunch, too. I'd say in a given week, I probably only do about 15 minutes of real, actual work.
You're talking to me all wrong. It's the wrong tone. You do it again, I'll stab you in the face with a soldering iron.
Uh-oh. Sounds like somebody's got a case of the Mundus.
You're like a machine underneath, right? But sort of alive outside?
I'm a cybernetic organism, living tissue over a metal endoskeleton.
He'll keep calling me. He'll keep calling me until I come over. He'll make me feel guilty. This is ridiculous, okay? I'll go.
Feel better now?
Yeah.
Want to get pancakes?
Hey everybody, welcome back to the intersection of faith, family, and filmmaking. You're listening to Fearless with Mark and Amber, a behind the scenes of our filmmaking ministry, Fearless Features, where we are creating educational documentary films about the issues impacting our culture and society from a biblical perspective, and pursuing truth above all else. I'm Amber Archer, and joining me is my husband, author, director, speaker, Mark Archer.
I don't even know what that means, okay?
You can learn more about us and the movies we're making by visiting fearlessfeatures.org. It's also a great place to make that one-time or monthly donation if you are passionate about reaching the lost for Christ through film. Visit fearlessfeatures.org to share your support today.
Man, I'm tired of being right.
You're such a loser.
Yay! Happy episode number 300.
300. We were excited to make it to 100.
Yeah. Because it was Seth Godin who said you don't really have a podcast until you get to 100.
Yeah. So now that we're at 300, I guess we
got a podcast.
we're rock stars now.
Right?
So
Okay.
Anyway.
This keeps getting better on down the line.
Yeah. So we have a fun show for you today, and
Special guest.
special guest Craig Sawman Sawyer is going to be with us after the break.
Before CR.
Yep. Before CR.
Supporting it.
Veterans for Child Rescue.
Yep.
Friend of the show, friend of ours. We love Craig. And but before that, we've got a couple of additional things to talk about
Yes.
the church.
Well, you know, and these are all things that need to be discussed, right? And fortunately, unfortunately, there have just, especially in our lives personally, there are just some things happening in our local area that so many people are questioning, and rightfully so, they should be. And
we live in the city of churches. There are endless churches and endless problems.
Yeah.
Like we said last.
And it really stems from, you know, starting to talk about it. And I think it's one of the main reasons that we do share it here on the show. Because the more that people stay silent, the more these things go unaddressed.
Yeah.
And I think our hearts break for the people who are unaware and are going to eventually come to the same hurt
Yeah.
that hundreds of others have.
Yeah.
Thousands around the world.
Yeah.
Millions.
Yeah. I know this isn't isolated, and I'm over the silent generation mentality of, well, these are just things that we keep them inside the church. We don't talk about. You know, some things you keep inside the church, right? If it's offended by a brother, you take it back to that individual. But for very specific reasons, we're talking about this. We're not naming specific churches right now. That would
right now.
That wouldn't be appropriate at this juncture.
But
a lot of them know who they are.
You know.
If you know, you know. I've called out several churches in my social media feeds, and some people know who I'm talking about, and some people don't. It's not just one church that we're talking about. And one thing I wanted to add to what we talked about last time, talking about church membership, is that it's
if you didn't listen to last week's episode,
if
you'll
you're
have to
at
go
a
back and listen to
church
it.
or you're running a church that has membership, voting membership, it's fine. Church leaders, I'm talking to you. It is incumbent upon you to be honest about what it is.
Mhm.
Voting members in a 501c3, it's fine, but don't make it into a spiritual issue.
Right.
That they have to be a voting member to somehow officially be part of the church body. We have debunked that. You have nothing. Bring the scripture. You can't, because there is none. The body of Christ is the body of believers. So just be honest with people. And I can tell you that when a church starts pushing, you need to be a member, you need to be a member, you need to be a member.
Start asking questions. Just ask why.
The question. I'll tell you why. It's because they're dealing with finances. And especially if you're looking at a building program, expansion, something like that, that's what it is.
And there's nothing wrong with that, but please be honest with people.
There's nothing wrong with it. Because just like when you go to buy a house, they want to see your finances. If a church corporation, a 501c3, goes to a bank and wants to borrow money for that new building or to add on or whatever, the bank is going to ask, how many members do you have? Well, let's see your balance book.
Is it worth taking the risk?
Right. That's what that is.
Yeah.
So church leaders, you need to be honest about what it is. Stop disguising it as something that it's not. Okay? That's what it is. 9 times out of 10.
Yes.
So I am not criticizing churches that have memberships. It's fine, but they need to be honest about what it is.
Right.
Anyway, you have an article.
Anyway, yes, somebody, of course, we talk about all the fun stuff. So of course people want to send us stuff, and we love articles. But again, it just goes to show you. So this one is titled 5 Signs of a Dangerous Pastor.
Uh-oh.
And many people, if you know, you know.
Man, I'm tired of being right.
Okay.
So this is written from somebody who is in Arizona.
Okay.
Okay. They don't know anything about what's going on here in Fort Wayne, Indiana. But man, could it be written specifically for a couple of churches?
And I'm sure that this is pretty much universal.
I believe so. That's why, and this is why we need to keep talking about this. We have thoughts and comments.
Yes.
We'll
go
keep
ahead.
going. So, and I'm going to read this in its entirety, but I will leave a link. You can go and read it for yourself, share it with friends. I would encourage you to, especially those of you who are hurting and trying to reconcile. I think that's the biggest thing is there are so many people. Listen, I'm not going to say I'm tired of getting the phone calls and the emails and the text messages from people who are wounded from the church, but it makes me very angry that I am the one having to counsel people on forgiveness,
church hurt,
and leadership. It's sickening to me.
Yep.
So let's read this from a non-affiliated party.
A nonpartisan view. Go ahead.
Here we go.
All right.
Okay, so this is from thegospel.org, and I can't remember the guy's name. I don't know. I'll go back and look at it. Trustworthy leadership is hard to find. Inside and outside Christianity, men and women with fancy letters behind their names are doing nasty things to innocent people and children. It's becoming more and more apparent that academic degrees, while important, and achievements, while admirable, are not the measure of success for a leader. Integrity is.
Thank you.
I recently tweeted about, and this was the person who wrote the article. I recently tweeted about the 5 signs of a dangerous pastor and wanted to add some commentary to each of the 5 points in an effort to shed more light on this topic. While it's understandable that an article like this is not an exciting read, there are people who need to read it. For those who are trying to discern whether or not to stay at their church, this is a huge deal. Just like lives are changed every day when people find faithful pastors who labor in Christ's exalting service, lives are changed for the better every time someone escapes the dangerous ones too. If just one family, no, one individual, is made more aware of what to look for in a church leader because of a list like this, it's all worth it. If you're a pastor, this list is the mirror of conviction we stand in front of. asking the Holy Spirit to expose where we've been compromising and trusting his power to set us straight. If you're a church member who suddenly realizes this list fits the bill of your pastor and has for a long time, buckle up. You may need to find a new church. Here are the 5 signs.
Okay.
Pause. Anything you'd like to say there in the open?
Yes, it's very simple. Stop making it more complicated than it is. One thing that I meant to say last week that I didn't, I would never counsel anyone to stay in an abusive relationship, whether it's a
Personal
business, relationship, business relationship,
spiritual.
And that goes for a church as well. Mm-hmm. Okay. I would never counsel anyone to willingly stay in a relationship where you are belittled, where you are put down, where they are trying to constantly control you. That's all I'm going to say. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Oh, here are the 5 signs. Number 1, the pastor insulates himself. This is a pastor who surrounds himself with a system of layers, making it nearly impossible to get valuable time with him. Still, he makes sure to appear personable and approachable in public settings. He insulates himself because he's the CEO-minded and deeply believes that the best way to grow the church is to be distant from the people. This pragmatic approach gives him a sort of holy aura as he attempts to make himself a novelty to his followers. Like the Pope waving from an ivory tower in the Vatican City, the pastor who insulates himself can remain godlike status while doing whatever he pleases out of sight. You won't find him doing a whole lot of discipleship. This guy is the show and go type. You see him Sunday, then he's gone.
Mm-hmm.
You're a loser.
Is that the end of that one?
That's the end of number 1. Anything you'd like to add there with
some characteristics of a pastor like this? They run a very top-heavy organization. Mm-hmm. So they spend a lot of money on a bunch of pastors to surround themselves and delegate to all of these pastors. And then they get pastors, their own assistants, and they spend a lot of money remodeling the church.
Hey, and all these other people take the hits.
Right.
For what's coming down.
This is what it's for. This is what it's for. You know,
so this is what they're talking about.
You know how I understand this? Not because I've been a pastor, but because I've worked in Hollywood.
Yeah. This
is what Hollywood mindset is.
Yeah.
I'm going to make myself out to be unreachable. That's why
holy aura.
That's why they all have personal assistants and managers and agents, and I could go on and on and on. But one of the first pieces of advice that I ever got after I went to Sundance, right? And I'm just a guy, managed to get a film in, we won. Next thing I know, people are telling me, well, producers, they need producers reps, they need attorneys, and you need a publicist. And I said, what is the point of a publicist? The publicist's job is to keep people away from you and to set up the meaningful interviews, to create that aura that you're looking to build, your brand building. If you see a pastor that's doing this, he's trying to brand build. He is no different.
If you start to see your church looking a little different.
He's also the one who, changes the locks on his office so that only he can be in there, right? Because it is exactly the opposite of an open door policy.
Yeah.
He's insulating himself. It's not that hard to figure out.
Okay.
Okay.
Number 2, the pastor is threatened by smart individuals.
You're such a loser.
I know this article, it was great. It was kind of comical to read. But sad, all at the same token. This is a pastor who can't stand educated and discerning people who ask tough questions. He will tolerate some question asking because he's smart enough to appear fair and tolerant. However, you won't find men with a high degree of theological knowledge hanging around for very long. This threatens his pride.
Are you threatening me?
Instead of receiving constructive wisdom from those who may even be wiser or being open to feedback from people within the congregation, he patronizes those with less experience and demeans those with less knowledge.
Respect my authority.
This pastor draws influence and power from knowing more than others do, or appearing like he does.
Silence! I kill you!
I got one sentence. He maintains a long-term following by drawing unsuspecting people he can manipulate.
Man, you are one pathetic loser.
I'm only at point 2 of this conversation.
This is just I know these people because I was these people. The only difference
Such were some of you.
The only difference was I was not in the pulpit. You are not fooling anybody, bro.
No.
Not at all.
Hey, what happened?
Go ahead.
Okay, point number 3. The pastor punishes those who disagree. This is the fun one.
Wait, hold on.
Oh, okay.
Respect my authority!
Okay.
Crush your enemies. See them driven before you, and hear the lamentation of the women.
Go ahead.
Okay, this is the pastor who creates a punitive culture within the church. This church becomes a place where it's the dogmatic pastor's way or the highway. Should you or anyone else even think about gently pointing out inconsistencies in the theological positions he holds, you run the risk of being privately shamed. Think about addressing something unbiblical or unethical within the church, and you run the risk of public retribution. For staff members, this means the loss of livelihood. For church members, this could mean the loss of reputation in the community as the pastor publicly or privately paints the opponent in a negative light.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one is what kills me. So, there are so many people, and we don't have to name names.
That's a bunch of crap.
When people walk away, you should probably ask why.
You would think so.
And not to assume, because I think that's where the feedback right now is, and some of the people that we're trying to help. There are others who are still within these churches who have zero idea of what's going on. And so the person who is left or has been driven out, they're only getting one side, and a lot of times people, if you've been a part of a church for many, many years, you really don't want to believe that it's church leadership that's actually the one causing all the problems.
Yeah.
And it's church leadership. Sometimes they don't even realize they are the problem.
In which case they're incompetent.
Yes.
And they shouldn't be in church leadership.
Yes. Because you're not actually paying attention to the congregation.
Yeah. And this is the thing, I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but there are so many churches, especially.
Listen, I didn't write this article.
Yeah.
This is somebody in Arizona. Yeah. This is a universal problem.
There are so many, especially evangelical churches, that are trying so hard to amp up the entertainment. So you're borrowing pages from the book of the world.
Yeah.
We're going to make things, it all started back in the 80s. It was the seeker-sensitive movement. Yeah. We have to make everything attractive to people who are seeking. Well, there's a theological problem there anyway, but they all bought into it. Now we have an entire generation of consumer Christians that want to be entertained. And so they shop around for the best entertainment. And what they find is you're all playing the same songs. You all have the same sound and light show, right? So you would think that churches that are obsessed with income streams and customer satisfaction
data
would care. They would take a page from the book of, hey, if you've lost a paying customer, I mean, I'm just going to be brutal about it. That's how they treat people.
Yeah.
If you've lost a paying customer, you'd want to know why.
If you're in this kind of church, especially.
But if you're a church that treats people like cattle, like they're paying customers, paying members of the organization, and they leave and stop paying, and you go, I don't care. Well, then you've shown yourself to be incompetent and stupid.
Fool.
I mean, just dumb.
That's a bunch of crap.
Go ahead.
Okay. So 4, the pastor is obsessed with his own vision.
Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
This pastor knows exactly what he wants, and his will, God's will be done.
That is not correct.
You may hear this pastor say something like, I started this church and this is how it's going to be, or this is my church and no one is going to take it from me. Those exclamatory statements may seem shocking, but they are not uncommon. So is all, quote, vision bad? No. It's actually beneficial when a leader has a plan for the future of a church, but all a pastor needs to say about his vision is that his vision is to do what the Bible says to do. Unfortunately, many churches only hire people if they sign on to serve, quote, Pastor Steve's vision or Mark's or Jim's or Greg's. Guess what? The church has nothing to do with a man's vision. It's about Christ. No church growth book can change that. No advice from a pragmatic guru can change that. And no amount of pastoral kicking and screaming can change that. The church belongs to Jesus.
You're a loser.
Yes.
And please, can we stick to the scriptures and stop with the self-help books?
I remember a particular pastor, a past pastor, declaring to the entire congregation, you didn't hire me just to be your pastor. You hired me to be the visionary.
The visionary.
And this is the same pastor that was overheard walking through the church lobby saying, I'm going to bring this church back.
Yeah. Okie dokie.
You're a loser.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, number 5. We are wrapping it up here at the end.
Okay.
So the pastor twists the Bible to fit his own rules. From elders who aren't really biblical elders to using money for whatever he deems noble and necessary, this pastor viewed stewardship and accountability systems as very fluid concepts.
I am dangerous.
In other words, stewardship is really about what he wants to do versus what he must manage on behalf of the church. Accountability to this pastor is about putting yes men in key positions. Sorry.
What you need is a board of elders that will say,
That is the worst idea I've ever heard in my life, Tom.
Yes, it's horrible, this idea.
In most cases, this pastor will boast about his high level of accountability and adherence to scriptural authority in order to appear trustworthy.
Respect my authority.
He will claim to be he will claim them to be his deepest convictions until those things infringe on his decision-making process. Then the twisted game begins. Instead of admitting a mistake or facing the difficult pain of owning a poor decision, he twists, even ignores the Bible to fit his own rules and make excuses for his decision-making. This kind of leadership is not the kind of leadership that Jesus had in mind when he promised to build his church in Matthew 16:18. If this is a kind of autocratic ruler that dominates your assembly week in and week out, run to safety, even if it means switching denominations for a while.
We are
doomed! Run away! Run for my life!
Yeah, I don't know what else to say other than why do you stay? If you know this is happening, see it to be true. I know that a lot of people, please don't, especially if you've been someplace for a long time, decades. And we all know and love the communities that we've been a part of. And I think that's one of the things, especially when you get in a situation like this, if you end up with this kind of pastor, it becomes blatantly obvious that when this person moves in, suddenly all of us seem to be the problem, yet we've served and worshiped and done life together for decades, and now suddenly we're all the problem.
That's a bunch of crap.
I mean, it's worth questioning.
Yeah.
So, you know, and it's up to each one of us to do whatever the Lord is calling you to do. Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you whether to stay or go.
Ask the obvious questions and be willing to see the obvious answers in front of you. I mean, when did the problem start? It's maybe when this guy showed up. Well, then maybe there's a correlation there.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm not going to tell somebody one way or the other. I'm just going to point out the obvious, that there's only so much that you can expect to have changed. And there are certainly ways to go about raising your concerns, right? But when you see things that are blatant and just wrong, and and it doesn't get addressed,
unethical
things going on in a church, you need to get out of there. It's just not a healthy environment, because it's ethics that should be at the highest level in a church. It shouldn't be the other way around. Anyway, we are almost out of time for the first half.
Okay.
So we will be back with our good friend, Craig Sawman Sawyer,
Yeah.
BRB.
Sexual predators and comprehensive sex education both break down inhibitions. That's what they start with. They also gain trust with the child and then slowly start to get them towards sexual activity.
Anything goes. You are teaching children adult child sex, you're teaching transgender issues, and children are moldable and influenced by that.
They said, okay, now we need you and your team to be able to explain what homosexuality is to a 4-year-old student.
To introduce this kind of material at that age, frankly, it's child abuse.
You're going to teach our children that it's okay for any two children of any age, of any sex, to have sexual intercourse with each other as long as two components are present. One's using a condom and they both give consent. Did I hear that correctly?
It's not a neutral venue. There's no such thing. Okay, the schools are doing your job. They are discipling your children, but they're not discipling them in the faith of Jesus Christ.
It's only the exceptional child that even survives that system. Most do not survive, most have not survived.
They believe that children are sexual from birth and that they deserve and have the right to be sexually active and to seek sexual pleasure. And if anyone is stopping them from that, then you are judging and oppressing them.
Even kindergarten now, they're wanting to teach them more and more perverse information and acts and put that into the children's minds. And once that poison is in a child's mind, it doesn't leave. They'll always remember what they learned. And it's by design, it's orchestrated.
In my humble opinion, it will be worse before it gets better.
Well, Craig, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. It is awesome and such a privilege to have you and just to see you and speak to you again. We haven't seen each other since The Mind Polluters when we were recording the interview for that because we wanted to include what you've done in your field with V4CR and Contraland. So can you just introduce yourself to the listening audience, the video audience, and just tell them a little bit about who you are and what you do?
You know, I'm a veteran of military special operations, SEAL team, and federal law enforcement as a federal criminal investigator in the Federal Air Marshal Service. And I did 10 years of high threat mobile security in the war zones for the Department of State and our intelligence community, protecting their high ranking officials, moving them around the war zones. And I learned about child trafficking 10 years ago in Houston, Texas. And it was a friend of mine from the intelligence community that let me know that child sex trafficking had become really, really pervasive there in the area that we had grown up. And it was very upsetting to me. And I realized that I had to fight it. And I had been to 60 countries around the world by that time. And I felt duped. I felt like, I'd been sent away to defend the people that I love here against a boogeyman that may one day come here, while all along the boogeyman lives here and does the worst harm to the least worthy of harm, the least deserving of harm, the little children. Once I started understanding that, I thought, okay, I got to fight this. And the way that I decided to fight it was expose it. We're called to expose evil. And that's what I decided to do. And the documentary Contraland was my method through which I intended to expose that evil. And as I set about trying to make that documentary, I learned that this world, this fallen world, is not open to having that information disseminated to the populace. And I ran into all kinds of buffoonery and hostility and antics to try to keep that information from the people. And then that's become my life's calling now. I'm full-time in this fight. I founded Veterans for Child Rescue, a nonprofit org, just to rally the funding to make the documentary, to alert the people, to stop the harm. And we started running joint sting operations with law enforcement, and we arrest a bunch of the predators and stop them. And we do a radio show, a television show, and public speaking, and all kinds of other things to alert the American people to what's going on against our children, so that we can rise up culturally and change and put a stop to it. So that's really who I am. And you know, it would be negligent not to say this. In confronting evil, I realized I had to be very close to the Creator to have any authority, any power to break this veil of top cover and protection that the wicked have in their what they do to the children. Because for them, it's spiritual. They're Luciferians. They're scumbags. They would literally worship evil, and that's why they harm the children. And I was told by an agent that was experienced in this, Craig, you're not going to get but so far with your badge and gun and conventional investigation techniques. You're going to have to figure out how to breach this spiritually. So I knew that he was right, and I began trying to grow spiritually. And then after interviewing many, many survivors of satanic ritual abuse, started learning more and more of what the scumbags do to the children and how it literally spiritual it is for the ugly ones. Just have grown very close to King Jesus. And it is real. Evil is real, and the forces of good are real. And if you want to overcome evil, you better have a higher power, and that's the Creator of everything. So Jesus Christ and I have become much, much closer, and I'm pursuing him with all that I'm worth.
Yeah.
And that's been my journey, and I'm celebrating it and growing and learning. And there's a lot of humility, and I'm being humbled and as I learned, and I'm thankful. I just walk in gratitude now, and I realize God doesn't need me, but he's allowing me to serve, allowing me to fight. But the battle is his. So all of that is who I am and where I am on this planet right now.
Yeah, and what's so amazing is you freely share in that, and just knowing that we all have to start somewhere. It's not like we wake up one day and suddenly we're instantly connected to the Lord in such a spiritual way that we can, overcome anything. No, that's not the way it works. Even people who are former addicts or alcoholics or whatever it is, I mean, you need the Lord as your base and your foundation to overcome whatever vice that is keeping you. So
yeah, a lot of times it takes being humbled to realize that you need your Creator, who literally is the breath in your lungs. You can't even breathe. You wouldn't even exist into the next microsecond, except he will you to exist. Once you comprehend that, you don't have any problem kneeling before the Father, even getting on your face.
That's right.
And yielding, and then you can move.
Yeah.
All he needs is a willing, obedient vessel in us, and then he can do great things, but we have no power on our own. So that's the key, is really first realizing that before you can be of any use to his kingdom.
Well, and what's so cool is, cool, I say cool in a loose term, I should say, is, you have been literally a soldier on the front lines physically, and now a soldier on the front lines spiritually. And so how, especially that transition, people who may not understand that they're in a battle every day, how do you help wake people up to that and what's going on? We've been talking a lot in our podcast just recently, as we work on our new movie Principalities, just about spiritual warfare and just helping people realize and understand we are in a battle. And I think just before we started, we kind of touched on that. Can you expand and just kind of share with people what that looks like?
Well, a lot of people, if you look online with a lot of videos, there's a mass of people talking about the book of Enoch now. And they're comparing that to Genesis 6 and talking about the antediluvian time before the flood and what all is going on, because archaeologists are starting to discover a lot of technology and things that, like, how advanced had things gotten before the flood, and people are studying all this. And when you realize what all had happened then, whatever your source of history, you realize, man, mankind has been under assault from the very beginning, from back to the garden.
Yeah.
And when you research that and you start piecing that together, you realize we were born on a battlefield. And a lot of Americans now have enjoyed the benefits, the sanctuary of freedom and liberty that has been built for them by heroes who sacrificed everything. Arlington Cemetery and countless other cemeteries around the world are filled with heroes who gave everything for our freedom and liberty. And we take it for granted on the whole. And we're like, oh, I don't like confrontations. Mm-hmm. So we turn away and we block out and we try to ignore. I don't like ugliness. I don't like evil. I don't like the thought of it. I don't want to face it. So I'm just going to ignore it. Well, guess what? The demons are thought casters. This is allowed very apparently by the Creator to test the hearts of man. So back in Genesis, the fallen angels mated with human females and gave birth to an abomination species that were never sanctioned by the Creator, never authorized by him, not intended. They were doomed before they were ever even born. They grew to be giants and then wiped out, or mostly wiped out, and their disembodied spirits of the dead Nephilim and Rephaim and all the other species of them are the demons and the disembodied spirits that torment humans. So a lot of Americans don't realize when they get a destructive thought, seemingly out of nowhere, they think it's their own mind exploring and playing games. They don't realize that these thoughts are cast to them oftentimes. It's not that we don't have our own flaws and jacked up thoughts also, but some of them do the bad thing. Mm-hmm. Make the theft, tell the lie. These things are often sent to us by the demonic spirits. And so we got to realize we're under assault. Our relationships are under assault. Our finances are under assault. Our health is under assault. And once we comprehend that, we realize we can choose which thoughts we entertain. Choose which thoughts. There's ministering spirits. There's angels that hey, you can do the right thing. Don't tell the lie. Don't take the thing that's not yours. Go bless someone. Love your father back. There's information's telepathic in the spirit realm from both sides, and we get to choose which thoughts we entertain and how we think and how we speak to each other and what actions we take. So that power, that gift of free will is a superpower. I say it's Craig's interpretation. It's not biblical that it's a superpower, our free will, but we do have free will to choose. Mm-hmm. Every thought, every word, every action. And I think that is what the war is really about, is us not comprehending. We have that ability to choose which kingdom we're going to serve at every thought, every word, and every step of our lives. And we're either going to grow closer to our Father's heart, or we're going to go further away from it by choosing self and dysfunction.
Yeah.
Amber.
And so for people who are like, okay, so how do I discern? How do I get to that spot? I know for us, we tell people all the time, listen, you need to be reading the word for yourself. You need to be in the scriptures and studying for yourself. Yeah. But what say you? What would you tell people?
Yeah, you already hit it. You stole my thunder. Because it's true.
It's so basic.
Universally true. It's always been true, and it always will be true. The word is the truth. Mm-hmm. So if you want to have discernment, fill yourself with the truth. Calibrate yourself to the truth. Because Jesus Christ is the way. He is the truth. He is the life. He's walking, talking truth. He is the way that it is. And when he speaks, when he inspires man to write it down, it ministers to us, it blesses us, and it calibrates us to his heart. That's how we do it. Now, in addition to that, for me, for Craig, the most blessed time I have is when I first do that, and then I get away And the scripture says many times, meditate on my word. Think upon the truth and let it permeate, let it marinate, and let my ministering spirit speak to you and let it open a little bit deeper. And so when I get alone with my Father and I worship him and I just thank him, I get in a specific heart of gratitude. I'm like, thank you for saving my daughter's life. Thank you for the breath of my lungs. Thank you for every sunrise. Thank you for every lesson learned, Father. Thank you for this beautiful Irish Cherokee bride that you gave me. Thank you for this chance to serve your kingdom. You know, there's like this veil gets opened up and I feel close to him. It's like, I'm not going to use the word magic because it's really an evil word. Yeah. It's a beautiful, sacred gift, this gratitude thing. No wonder he says in all things, give thanks. In everything, give thanks. It's a secret. It's a sacred gift where when we commune with him in that way, Father, thank you. And we spend time in that heart, boom, it all opens up for me. And I feel close to him like this.
Yeah.
Like he's right in my face, ministering to me. Okay, here's when you read this morning, you read this. Here's what it really means. Here's more. Here, and it opens, and I'm like, oh, wow. Now I'm starting to comprehend what it was like for not only this tiny percent of what Moses had with you, what David had with you, with Noah, and so many others had with you. This opens up. The more time we spend with the Father in that way, the more it opens up and we start to learn, and everything he shares back with you it amplifies what's in his word. He'll never go across a counter to the word that he had written and delivered to us. So that's what it's about, man. That's how you get discernment. To answer your question, it's not like a magic download one day and you're like, you pray, give me discernment, like, boom, okay, now you're a knower and here's the magic pill. It's as you calibrate yourself by reading and consuming his word, and it starts to saturate your understanding, and you read and read all the lessons, and then you marinate on it, and you just praise him, and you just spend time with your Father, Abba Father, in that special place. And it comes and it goes deeper. Through that process, your discernment is honed and sharpened and deepened and empowered. So that it's the process.
And it's
we're
discipline.
in a journey.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's discipline. You have to be disciplined.
It is a discipline, very much
do
so.
that. You know,
because there's every distraction that will, hey, look over there, squirrel, butterfly. Hey, phone's going to ring, door's going to ring, boom, 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 boom. Someone's going to try to hit you on the road, beep, 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 beep. Like a pinball in a pinball machine. Distraction is, this came to me in prayer, distraction is a deliberate tactic of our enemy. And it is brutally effective. It is stunningly
absolutely
effective. It's been effective in my life. And everything is a choice, including allowing distraction to be effective on us.
Yep.
So there's a discipline right there, deciding not to allow distraction to stop you from your dedication time, from your prayer time, from your work, whatever it is, your family time, whatever it is that you believe you need to do to develop yourself and improve yourself and purify yourself. There's that distraction is there to keep you from it. Again, I said our relationships are under attack. Satan's number one objective, the biggest relationship he wants to destroy is that with our Creator, and then that with others, and then even that which is with ourself through self-doubt. So it is a war, and we were born on this battlefield, and unless we understand it and understand how to defend ourselves, we're just going to get our lunch money taken and get eaten alive and end up in darkness.
Yeah.
So it's not about wanting to be combative or violent or entertain evil. It's about comprehending the armor and the protections that your loving Father gave you, putting it on and letting it bless you and giving you relief.
Learning to use it effectively.
Yes, yes. And even the very word of God, which is the one offensive weapon to slay the enemy with. Because what did Jesus Christ himself do when he was under attack? First thing he did after his cousin baptized and the Holy Spirit came down, he went into the wilderness and fasted and prayed for 40 days. What was he doing? What was that all about? Is he just unsociable? Or was he tuning in to his mission and getting really, really deeply calibrated and ready to go? And then what did he say when Satan said this, that, the other thing? He said, it is written.
Mm-hmm.
He spoke his own word, the truth, to Satan. And Satan was like, I got nothing. Just like a lawyer, you lay down such hard factual evidence, video, boom, here's your client doing the bad thing. Here's the evidence. Here's the DNA. The defense attorney's like, I got nothing.
Yeah.
See you. I'll be outside in the hallway. You know what I mean? So anyway, yeah, there's that.
In the first half of the show, Mark and I were talking about that we were going through an article because there's so much going on just in the churches especially, and just loving people for who they are and how the Lord has created everybody individually to be one body, many parts. We all have a job to do. Unfortunately, our churches are under attack. And
Clearly.
we went through and there was an article, it was 5 signs of a dangerous pastor. And just like you were just saying, having to put on your armor and going to battle, sometimes people I was excited to talk to you because we get stuck in these patterns and we don't want to leave an abusive relationship. And I remember when we were doing the interview for the mind polluters, and you and I were having a discussion about how the trafficked victims often run back to the abuser. And so can that be, is it possible, even when we have those bad spirits and, Jezebel spirit, as far as I'm concerned, in a lot of these churches, when you have an abusive relationship with your church and you don't want to leave because you've been there for so long, it's who you are. How do you help people through that? How do you help them, see the light that this is not healthy and it really is okay to move on? The same way that Jesus retreated, for 40 days into the wilderness to commune with the Father and to be closer, to understand the mission better. How do we get people to understand that may be your next step and joyfully accept it, sacrifice, whatever your desires are.
Let me start by saying I don't claim to have all the answers. I mean, I'm learning like a toddler, all of this. So, like I said, God, humility is one of the biggest lessons that God's pouring into me, and sometimes down on my face in prayer. So it's like that. So what I see though with churches, first thing that occurs to me is Jesus never intended for the church to be a business.
You're right.
Right. So I see so many churches that are beholden to the IRS, and they won't say anything that's going to upset the IRS. And I would say, take a look at the heart of the IRS. Do you trust those people? Is that any entity that you want lorded over Jesus's church? And I would say that tax break, that nonprofit tax break, is not worth it. Not worth it. I would love it if our churches would reject that and do without that little extra money and speak the truth as Jesus Christ would have it spoken. He spoke it in love, but he did not pull punches. I mean, look at how he spoke to the Pharisees. I mean, it was pretty, it was raw.
Save the best for them.
Here's what is, right? I mean, obviously he was perfect. He showed us how to be. So if we're not that way, then we need to fix ourselves. So I would say any pastor, if he loves his flock, he wants them empowered with truth and shouldn't have any problem with them going and hunting around and visiting other churches to see where they feel the most at home, the most ministered to, the most blessed, the most fed, so that they are strengthened and can go then minister to others. And I think so many just go and they feed from the trough. They get fed and then they sit home, or they don't minister to anybody. So we're meant to go out and share the good news. Don't just, harbor it. Don't just hoard it. That's not what was intended. The same thing with wealth. When he blesses us, we're to give it and share it. That's what it's for. So I'm learning these things, and that's what really occurs to me. How do people, how do these churches get corrected? Man, I think it's really in realizing, look at the Black Robe Regiment back in the Revolutionary War. I mean, the pastors were such strong speakers of truth. They were really encouraging and inspiring the American people to stand up and defend their freedom and liberty. And that seems to have been largely lost. And a lot of people call our churches, sugar frosted gospel or milk toast, and names that describe weakness. And so, why is our church weak? I think it's because they seem to be serving the business or serving the dollar. They're worried about the numbers of people in seats because they're worried about the number of dollars tithed and how many programs and all that. And I would just encourage a refocus on souls. Just let it be genuinely about souls and truth, and get the IRS out of it, get the federal government out of it, because I see utter wickedness there. And, churches don't talk about porn enough. Porn is, from what we're finding in our arrests, when I ask these predators, what got you started, like, how are you all the way down to a little child that has none of the features that a full-grown, healthy spouse and mate that would give you healthy offspring would have? Why are you all the way down to a child that has none of those features and they can't comprehend sex? And it's in fact deeply traumatizing to them. It's not intended. Why are you? Oh, well, porn, I just got started watching a little something, then it became an addiction, and now here I am in handcuffs. I'm like, wow. So churches, pastors have the responsibility, the duty to shine the light on that snare that is destroying marriages all over the planet, destroying families, and creating so much distortion and perversion and harm. Satan's dancing on our children because of what's happened with broken families and the sexual perversion. You mentioned Jezebel's spirit that's really dancing on our families and laughing over our nation right now. So I would say that more pastors should have the moral courage. If you know that Jesus Christ is the creator of everything, and we are all created beings and none have any power over him whatsoever, then why would you be afraid to speak truth? Why would you be afraid to full send, we say, like send it, like speak it straight, do it in love, always in love. Everything we should do must be in love, or we're getting it wrong. Even when it's brutally clear and it may be uncomfortable, it's got to be delivered in love, because the truth is love. God is love. Our Creator is literal love. He is the source of it. So once we comprehend that, we shouldn't be afraid to say what is, tell it how it is, and stand up and speak truth, and start creating a safer place for the children, and for families to heal, and for the attacks against us to be identified so that we can defend ourselves against it as a nation, and rebuke these things. And it's not being done because, too many pastors are afraid of offending someone, and they're bending the knee to every manner of perversion, all the alphabet soup level of things that are being pushed upon us by the global Luciferian Marxist political arm of Satan's agenda. You've got to normalize and accept all these distortions and perversions and sins that are destructive. No, we don't. Jesus never okayed that, nor must we. We must love the person who's struggling, but not condone their misperception of what is, not condone their distortion, their perversion, the dysfunction that's going to lead them into sickness and death. We don't have to condone that. In fact, we must not. We must love them enough to tell the truth, even if their ears don't want to hear it. We have to deliver that truth in love. So that's what occurs to me to tell you, and encouraging these pastors to stand up and be that man or be that woman, whoever they are, be that deliverer of truth and love.
When how many times, because I think we talked about this earlier, how many times usually when someone is, trafficked or abused and they run back to an abusive relationship, and you had mentioned a certain amount of numbers, like on
Yeah.
average.
Yeah, I think the average number that I've heard the most is 7 times that they go back into harm's way. Someone who's rescued from child trafficking goes back an average of 7 times before it finally sticks. And I think that's because it's like a Stockholm syndrome. We human beings are creatures of habit. We tend to be more comfortable with the abuse that we know than the freedom, than the unknown that may be so much better, but our minds play tricks on us. And the enemy plays tricks on us. So we're afraid of the unknown, even if it's freedom. And so that's why I think we're seeing so many people, they'll pull the lever for slavery, they'll pull the lever for tyranny because it's all they know. And they're afraid of what may be different than that. It reminds me of the Wayne's World movie where the Garth was sitting at a workshop and he took a hammer and started wailing away on something and he said, "We fear change." And I was like, yeah, that's really true. It's funny because people do fear change. And we have an irrational reaction to it. My first wife is dead because of drug abuse. And I came home from Desert Shield and Desert Storm, and she was a crystal meth addict.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, what's happened to my wife? What happened here? And when I confronted her about it, once I started understanding what had happened to her, she left. And a year later, she called me destitute. And she had been on the streets. She had been in horrible situations. She had tattoos and burn marks all over her where she'd been held down and burned by cigarettes and just basically like a street walking meth addict.
Wow.
And all of this. And I was, you asked me a question. I was going to answer the question through this, Amber.
Going back to the abusers.
Yeah. So and saying, hey, I've got a place, the McDonald's Center here in San Diego, and they know about your case and they're ready to receive you and help get you cleaned up. And she said, I'm afraid to get clean. I'm like, you should be afraid not to.
Yeah.
You're calling me because you're bouncing off the bottom and you see that you're close to death. You should be afraid not to. She says, I don't know what it would be like. And I said, man, you're just going to have faith and realize what you have is bad, and you got to be willing to trade that. So anyway, she did get cleaned up. They said it was a really hardcore, like La Femme Nikita case where they're like, she's the most hardcore case we remember here. And she did get clean, but she never really got back on the horse of life. She's kind of floundered around small jobs and was sick, and her lungs were very sick. And, after probably another 4 or 5 years, she did die. She passed away in hospital, but afraid to get clean, afraid to be delivered, afraid to be free. It just struck me as something I wanted to share with you in response to that question.
Well, and it's a picture also of when people receive Jesus. I was thinking of myself and my own journey and how you're afraid. You have nothing. I have nothing left to offer. I have nothing left to give. I have no, and you're just afraid. But I try to tell people all the time, there's so much freedom on the other side. Just walk away from the abuse.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's like a homeless person in a urine-soaked coat sitting in a cardboard house saying, I'm afraid.
And they'll stay there.
To have a job and to have a warm home and warm food.
Because that's discipline and it takes work. And sometimes we don't want to work for it.
Woo! There's some truth right there spoken plainly. The first girl that we rescued, her name was Allison. We got her cleaned up. We got her a job. She was working in the customer service at Home Depot. They loved her there. She was doing great. Got her own bank account. her driver's license and her GED. She was on a path to a better life. It was beautiful, it was glorious, and really smart, even though she'd been through hell on earth. And she said, man, it's hard. Like, all this is harder than selling myself, even though it was dysfunctional and abusive and unhealthy. It was simpler. It was like easier. I'm like, wow, man, how are we going to deliver her from that darkness if it's a more natural way for her to function after those years than to have her control of her own life and be healthy and warm and safe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Have nobody beating on her, nobody just abusing her, and all the toxins and everything. It just struck me as like, man, how tragic. No wonder it's so difficult that there's that inclination in people. But yeah, you're very right. We've seen that to be true.
So along that line, how, shifting gears a little bit, with the recent change in the political atmosphere, how has your battle space, if you will, shifted, like on the border and the trafficking and all that? What have you seen? Is it making a huge difference? Because you're down there in Arizona.
Now there's control on the border.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty big thing.
Yeah.
In the child trafficking space, because Biden had it wide open because they were bringing unaccompanied minors, and there were government contracts delivering those unaccompanied minors to unvetted sponsors. In other words, traffickers.
Right.
So the government was literally conducting child trafficking under the Biden admin. Just horrific abuse of our tax dollars, along with human beings, the little children. So that has changed, thank God. We've gotten a couple more law enforcement agencies more willing to run counter-trafficking operations now. So I think once they see that the words are being backed up by this administration, I think the courage to stand up and fight back will increase. And I think we'll see increasing operations against child traffickers and child predators. So right now, it's still early days. People are waiting to see. But there is a resurgence of hope. But I think people are cynical after being lied to and abused for so long. They're kind of waiting to see if it's backed up. And they're waiting to see a bunch of arrests inside the FBI, inside the CIA, because we've been watching the congressional sessions and seeing them caught, lying to us, betraying us, committing treason against the American people. And no arrests have been made in those key agencies yet. No firings to any degree have been made yet. So they're waiting to see, is the swamp going to be drained? And is the law actually going to be enforced? And if so, I think we're going to see an opening of the gates of a return of legitimacy and enforcement. Right now, people are like hopeful, but it's a wait and see attitude.
Yeah.
It's like, the Epstein list.
Yeah, the Epstein list.
We were told that on day one, Kash Patel said, day one, you're going to have the Epstein list. Well, I don't know if he lied to us or if he's being undermined and it's beyond his control, but we got something that was not the Epstein list. It was a bunch of redacted nonsense. So he has not delivered on that promise. So whose fault that is, I don't know. I have confidence in him. He sounds like he means business, and I have a lot more confidence in Dan Bongino because I have a better sense of who Dan Bongino is personally. And I have every confidence he wants child trafficking broken, and he wants the FBI restored in its honor and its legitimacy from the corruption that it fell so deeply into. So we'll see. And I'm continuing to pray and support and hope that that bureau and other key agencies are restored, and then help this administration drain the rest of the swamp.
Yeah.
But we're saturated with corruption right now at the highest ranks, and that all has to be undone. We can't restore our nation with traitors and all these key agencies. It won't work that way.
Yeah.
So I think that's job one, and then it'll break free. So early days, but so far, pretty good hope and some progress.
So, Craig, what are you currently working on, and how can people support you in what you're doing?
Yeah, well, we're currently working on multiple new documentaries exposing networks, very powerful, well-funded networks of people that are systematically harming children in unspeakable ways, demonstrating all that through factual evidence, as we did with Contraland. What the people need to see to understand what's happening and break that dynamic of that control. And the secret societies, if you will, and religious institutions that aren't what they're advertised to be at all, at the top of ranks. And like 90% of the people from the top ranks on down don't know. And that's going to be heartbreaking for a lot of people. But again, the truth is love. And when you show them the factual evidence, it cannot be refuted. So that's what we're working on. We're running on increasing investigations that we're feeding to federal and local law enforcement, and increasing sting operations, arresting more predators and putting them away, and exploiting all the intel of all their networks and what they're really up to and how the money floats and all this. So there's a lot of RICO cases now going through into the corruption in Nashville, Tennessee, a corrupt reporter whose job is to cover up child trafficking and murder in Nashville. He's a radical leftist reporter. He's really unhinged. He's shown his cards, tipped his hand very, very, not subtly, very clearly. And in the hoarding of factual evidence by a state-run agency to cover up the multi-billion-dollar, we're talking hundreds of billions of dollars of BRICS nations funding and money laundering through real estate loan fraud in Tennessee, connected to Maricopa County and Phoenix, Arizona. And a lot of the Diddy party and the Epstein lawyers and all of them, they're all part of the same network. You investigate it far enough, you see the whole crime ring connected very closely to each other. And the local reporter there in Nashville trying desperately to keep a lid on all of it, but he can't. It's all coming out anyway. And big RICO cases that are going to open them up not only to criminal prosecution, but to civil litigation for their abuses of authority. And it's just what King Jesus is doing. He's on the move. He's exposing all of it. So Veterans for Child Rescue is in the middle of this, jabbing the aorta of that wicked serpent, that wicked dragon beast, so that King Jesus can tear it all down, expose it, so that it can be cleaned, cleansed, and the children can be spared. So we're just so grateful, and we're grateful for everybody's support of our mission and our personnel and the children.
So how can people find you, and how can they support your mission and what you're doing?
They can find us on our website, v4cr.org. And there are many ways there of empowering tools on how to get involved, how to better protect your children, how to better get involved in legislation, changing our education and all of it. Our prosecutorial system, judicial system, law enforcement, all of that, and then secure donate links and merch and everything else. And please, everyone grab our Risky Roast coffee, which is awesome. And I just had some while ago. I'm probably going to go back and have some more.
That's right.
After this.
and tell people about the patch.
The Kingdom Servant patch. Well, what that
Love
is,
it.
It's the kingdom of heaven. It's the Holy Trinity. So the Tetragrammaton, which is, let me see if I have one right here close by. Anyway. Mark, you can put yours up to the screen.
Take it all. Here we go.
Yeah, I'll put it up on the screen.
So it's Yahweh, the Tetragrammaton in Hebrew. That's what that says. It's Yod He Vav He, and the sounds that those characters make is E A U A. If you blend it together, it's Yahweh. So when Moses was on Mount Sinai, he said, "Who do I tell them send to me? Who?" And he said, "I am. Tell them that I am sent you." Well, I am in Hebrew is Yahweh. So there's the Father, and then the cross represents Jesus Christ and the Son. And then the wisp, the vapor there, represents the Holy Spirit. So just three manifestations of our King, of our Creator.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the Holy Trinity. So it's in one tactical patch, and that's what we wear now. All of us who love Jesus Christ and serve him, that's what we wear on our tactical uniforms and our hats now, because it just represents his kingdom in one glance. And all these different spec ops units and nonprofit orgs who are faith-based that love Jesus are adopting that logo now for that reason. So
yeah. Including Fearless Features. We love the logo.
Right on.
Well,
The shield.
I showed it to some buddies of mine. I said, this is like the modern day version of the Templar cross.
Yeah. Well, I prayed over it. I'm like, Father, what is something that would honor you, to be pleasing to you, that we could have? And that's what I ended up with. So
that's awesome.
I hope he's pleased by it. It sure feels right.
Yeah. Well, Craig, this has been an awesome conversation. We have so enjoyed being with you and you taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us, because we love you, brother. And
I love you guys and appreciate you so much. So thanks for covering this topic.
Yeah, thank you. Until next time, march on, Saints.